Alright, hello fans, and welcome to episode 63 of Bodied, the Cloud9 Fancast. Tonight, we got a lot, probably going to be mostly talking about the recent roster turmoil and heartbreak for the League of Legends team, but we got some other news. So let's dive right into it really quick, and then we can get to the good stuff, which everyone probably wants to hear. So a lot of this match result stuff is kind of old news, but I wanted to throw it in there just to talk about it a little bit. So Rocket League participated in the CyberPower PC Extreme Series, and they won it all. They had a rough day one, beating Hollywood Hammers and Applesauce 3-2. But then on day two, C9 came firing out on all cylinders. That's a car joke for anyone who likes cars. They beat G2 Esports 3-0 and 3-1 in the upper bracket finals and grand finals, respectively. So it's great to see that we're smacking at least one of our rivals pretty harshly, and we fixed stuff. Glento also did something. We have Hearthstone news, which almost never happens. True. He participated in the Gamgoon 2017 tournament. He lost, but he got second place, which I think is, I mean, I'm fine with second, to be honest.
It's better than third place.
Exactly, better than third place, and in my opinion, shinier than first place. Silver is a much better color. Gold is too gaudy. Avoid gold. Silver is where it's at.
Just remember, second is first loser.
Exactly, first loser. That's a big achievement. Also, I wanted to talk a little bit about the IEM Oakland event. It was actually a pretty big deal for us because the CSGO team came out and actually did really well. They got top 4 and they beat teams like SK Gaming, Astralis, and Gambit. They did lose to FaZe in the semifinals, and they seem to be our biggest equalizer right now. But I mean, FaZe is an extremely strong team, so to be able to at least get into the top 4 with this new-ish roster, I think is really great, and it shows that we are improving. Also, the PUBG team, they actually ended up placing in the top 8, so they got a cut of the prize money. I actually really liked the PUBG event. I'm not sure if you guys watched it, but I think it was really great because they showed a lot more of the map. They were, you know, they had some really great casters. Pansy was casting it a bunch, which she's extremely good, and you know, they were showing the map. I think they had like this X-ray vision thingy, so you could kind of see where people were hiding behind stuff, and it was much better handled than some of the other PUBG events that happen. So it was really great, and I think that it was a good showing for PUBG in terms of can it be an esport. So yeah, those were just some results. Do you guys want to add your 2 cents on anything?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Rocket League wise, I'm really proud of how our team's doing, and they've shown to be really, actually just wild when playing. I think depending on how the next couple of months go, once the next RLCS starts, we will be like a big contender still. And for CSGO, I'm really glad to see the roster actually starting to make some bigger moves. So it should be good for them. Hopefully they can stay consistent and just continue to get better.
Yeah, improvement's key. I really hope that Rocket League is able to fine-tune some of the things that they were struggling with. From the first day of the CyberPower tournament, and a little bit also from the World Championship, their defense was kind of struggling. So I hope that they can really fine-tune that, because sometimes they just miss goals that they probably should otherwise be able to get, or they're losing 50-50s and stuff like that. So I hope that they can fine-tune some things and fix some stuff that they've kind of been struggling with lately. And yeah, as for the CSGO team, it's really great to see them constantly improving. I think they look really good on LAN. and I hope that we can do really well in the future and continue to improve. Because I at least want us to see to go to one tournament final, or at least win one other kind of like big deal type tournament. I think that would be super vindicating. Frozen, do you have anything to add?
No.
The results are kind of old.
I don't have
no?
anything to add. I wasn't able
sweet.
to watch anything, per usual.
Alright.
Unfortunate.
Well, at least he's honest. Also, one thing to add before we move on, it concerns Overwatch. Frozen and I have went forward with the idea to make a London Spitfire / Overwatch League centric podcast. It's called The Dogfight. We're really excited about it. We had our first recording for our first episode Monday, and for first episodes go, it worked really well. We have a bunch of really nice people on the show. They're super nice. They know a lot about Overwatch. It's just a great time. If you want to hear us talk about our Overwatch League team or just Overwatch League in general and other stuff Overwatch, please check it out. We would be really appreciative if you would also listen to that one.
But I think the plan right now is to keep people updated on last week's events on the podcast, just like the overall scores. But yeah, there is a separate podcast for all the ins and outs of Overwatch and Overwatch League and London Spitfire. So if you're interested more in what we have going on there, we do have a pretty good group of guys and girls who are much more intelligent when it comes to Overwatch than I am. So it's at Dogfight Podcast on Twitter, so you can keep up in the know with that, and you can also follow the podcast on the subreddit. It's r/London Spitfire, I do believe. So
I think it's capital L, capital S.
Yeah, it's r/L London S Spitfire. So all the episodes will be published on there also, and we are in Apple Podcasts as of like 4 hours ago, I think. So, and that preseason starts next weekend. So if you're interested in getting involved, now's the perfect time. Preseason next week, and then the original season starts in January.
Yeah, I think it's like January 10th. Or somewhere around there. But yeah, really looking forward to all of that. Super good. So I think it's time, gentlemen, that we move on to the main event. What everyone has been salivating and wanting us to talk about for at least anyone who follows this show. So Cloud9 did some things. They did some moves. They reacquired Licorice, who was on E United, and I guess there was a clause in his contract where if E United failed to get into the LCS, we would get him back. So we got Licorice back. Cloud9 also signed Wiggly and Selfie, supposedly for the academy team. And then this is where things started to go off the rails. So Impact left because his contract just ran out. He had like a year contract. And he signed with Team Liquid for like $1 million. But the more surprising thing is Contracts left the team and is going to play for the Golden Guardians. And this left a lot of people really upset and are really confused. And to kind of add to this, Cloud9 announced the replacement for Contracts in Svenskeren. So I don't know. So I guess the first question is, what does this mean for Cloud9's spring season?
Let's start with the lower key signings. We'll start with Wiggly and Selfie. So, is someone able to give a rundown on Wiggly and Selfie and what we should look forward from look forward to from them in the future, if even just a split in this season?
I can give a quick rundown on Selfie if anybody wants to do Wiggly.
I don't know much about Wiggly.
I could do
know that
Selfie
LS
over Wiggly, but yeah.
I know LS feels very highly about Wiggly. He says he's very good. He recently even did a stream with Wiggly where he was just him and LS were just talking about the jungle in general and how it is with this preseason. But
I can come up with something.
I think I've seen it
for Wiggly.
I think I've seen a few of Wiggly's games. I mean, I've heard of him, but I just can't. He's never like stuck out in my mind as like, oh, he's a great jungler. Like, I just know him mostly because he has a silly name, so I can't really attest for his individual ability.
All right, you go first, Trey. Then I will jump in with a quick analysis of Wiggly based on some of the stats.
All right. So Selfie, he's been around actually since about 2014. He was on Super Hot Crew early in his career. Also was on Meet Your Makers. At one point, he was the main mid laner for H2K while Ryu was having some problems back in 2016. He showed to be really good. However, he was young and he was unexperienced, so he had that going for him. He also was under the Misfits brand at one point, Shaka Null Fear, Tempo Storm from May to November, and now just joining us. He really excels on champs that are really, I guess, skill-based and assassins. So like your Fizz, your Yasuo, Kassadin, Ahri, those are all champs that he really plays to the fullest extent. He really has a lot of room to grow still. Even though he has been around, he hasn't really gotten a big chance to be a starter for a long amount of time. And I think the Academy team will help him grow, especially under our org.
Yeah, I can agree with all of that from what I've seen. For me, on Wiggly, I'm looking at the Oracle Elixir stats from the last split, and it seems that he's someone that has the instinct to know where to be. His kills are pretty good, his assists are pretty good, his KDA is good, his kill participation percentage is decent. The only thing that kind of worries me about him is that his CSD was dead last in the Challenger split last year, but other than his CS difference at 10, he's not a world beater. I mean, he was in a league of junglers that includes Shifter and Skara, so a lot of it is a bit inflated. So I think that part of what it's going to be is a maximizing efficiency between farming and being at the right place at the right time, because it seems like he has one of those, and it probably is the most important part of jungling, is being where the fights are happening and working with his team. But when it comes to actually getting the gold that he needs, he is pretty low in that capacity. Part of it could be from even if he's involved with the First Bloods, he might be dying at some point. But I guess time will tell. LS is pretty high on him, which says something, but I don't know if it says a ton. It just says something. So that's just my quick rundown on him from what I have seen in the past couple minutes. So I'm not going to say it's exciting that we're putting him into the Academy team, but he has potential to be a good jungler in the future. But I think it's going to be more of a time will tell what happens, as opposed to he's going to be a world beater in a year or two.
I can agree to that. I do really think the Academy team is going to be just made around really developing talent who has shown some potential, or talent that has the chance to show potential in the long term. So I think Wiggly is a good pickup.
Yeah, I think in the grand scheme of things, when it comes to Academy teams, picking up any NA junglers is going to be, I guess, a quote-unquote risk, and it's going to be almost luck to see who comes out in the top to actually make it on the starting stage in a year or two. So Wiggly's as good as anything else on there. A lot of the other junglers in the league weren't actually NA. I didn't have hopes of being an NA starter in the future, like Shifter, Skara, Suntorrent's not a North American. So I think, all things considered, we got the best potential jungler from the Challenger Series last year. But again, he wasn't like some kind of world beat or like Acadian or Contracts was when they were in Challenger either. So there's a chance he could become really good, but I wouldn't put money on him being the next starting jungler for Cloud9 either. But let's move on. I think that's enough. I think most of the conversation is going to come from the main team and what happened there.
Yeah, so a lot of people are kind of puzzled and upset about this move because they were expecting for someone of more higher caliber than Licorice in the top lane, because you're seeing like Huni and Impact and Someday and Flame all, starting there. So you're seeing like all this crazy talent in the top lane, and instead of matching that with, I guess, similar talent, we're going with Licorice, who I say on an individual level he's pretty good. But, he mostly did play in Challenger, and Challenger isn't really... Challenger's a step down from, like, LCS, so if he is going to get smashed in, like, this first split, or maybe the first year, that might be expected. But I think putting Svenskeren in the jungle is a good move, because it's a lateral move with contracts. Svenskeren's also experienced. He speaks English, which I think is also important, so everyone is on the same page. He is, very mechanical, and I think with C9's environment, he can go back to what he was before he was on TSM, which was an emasculated ward that would just kind of run around and do whatever Bjergsen said. But I wasn't hyped about the Svenskeren pickup, but once it was announced, I was fine with it, and was actually a bit excited because, you have this guy who was our enemy for like 2 years and was kind of beating us in, games and everything, and now he's on our side. So it's kind of interesting and maybe a bit exciting to see how Cloud9 with Svenskeren does versus against him. So,
all right. Is this rant time?
No, let's start off with Licorice.
All right. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so for me, I actually really like the Licorice pickup. If you look at the stats from last year's Challenger Series, he is probably the unequivocal top performer among top laners in Challenger Series last year, which, I mean, maybe you could say it doesn't mean all that much as Challenger Series. It's not like he's playing Someday, Flame, Looper, and stuff like that. But I think when you're performing at the top of Challenger Series, it proves that you kind of have a future in LCS. And for me, I want to compare it to the junglers from the summer of 2016, because Contracts and Acadian both came out that year. And a relative to all the other people in that position, Licorice actually probably performed better relative to his competition than both Contracts and Acadian did. Granted, they were going against each other. Dardoch at some points, along with some other decent junglers like Moon played a couple of games. Diamond Prox played a couple of games. So I think the competition, you could argue, would be a little bit better among junglers that year. But I think that Licorice is going to be a pretty decent asset to this team. Maybe not this first split, but for sure a year on, or even two years on. And for me, the biggest thing about this is that we're picking a Licorice up as kind of the fifth man, quote unquote, of this roster, where he's not going to be the one who's expected to carry us to victory each game, and it's going to be more of a, he just has to hold his own in lane and come out even each game at best, and we'll be in a good position to win, because Sneaky and Jensen are pretty big gold hogs, and they kind of always have been, especially Jensen. So we don't need someone to come in and carry every game on gold. So I think based on that, Licorice was a decent pickup for us. Was it the best pickup we could have done? Probably not. But I think looking long term, it is a decent pickup for us.
I think also just to add, Cloud9 has always been very good at developing and molding North American talent. I mean, look at like Smoothie. When he first started playing for us, it was like between him and Bunny Fufu, and they looked about the same. But by the end of Smoothie's first split with us, he was looking to be the clear favorite and was looking really good with the team. And now he's like the best support in North America. You know, we took Contracts, who is a rookie jungler, and now he's like the best North American jungler, or one of the best. You know, so I think, look at Jensen. When Jensen started as a rookie, he was kind of but after like his first split, he started popping off, and now he's one of the best mid laners. So I think that if anyone wants to go and choose a new talent or a developing talent and really wants to get better or reshape themselves, I think Cloud9 is definitely the place to do it, because there's something about the environment that really just helps make everyone better. So I think Licorice is going to be in good hands. I wasn't necessarily too jazzed for him like I was with Jensen or Contracts, but if he has a decent showing, I think everyone will feel a lot better about his signing.
Yeah, the one thing I really do want to say about Licorice is I think in the long term he has so much potential, but we do have to realize that, yes, at the beginning of the split, this will be a direct lowering of skill compared to Impact. And I don't think anybody can question that.
I mean, anyone that's not Impact is probably just a downgrade of skill. Any team that loses Impact is probably a downgrade of skill, no matter how you slice it, because he's Impact.
Possibly. The thing is, Impact, you gotta remember, on, like, Impulse, Impact was not the Impact we saw on Cloud9. Impact did flourish on Cloud9. And I think we can get Licorice to the point where he will be not necessarily at the same level as Impact, but can work with the team as well as Impact did, especially without having to go through that language barrier. So I think in the long term, this is really good for us. Getting the language barrier out of the way actually probably helps it quite a bit. The one thing I will say is it does hurt losing Impact a lot, but I think Licorice is probably one of the best people we could have picked up that is NA talent. So
yeah, I think unarguably he was probably the best NA talent that we could have picked up this split. Do we want to since it's probably time to move on, do we want the full rant or do we want the vanilla rant?
I think in order to give everyone equal time to discuss, because this is probably the biggest point of contention for a lot of fans. I've seen a lot of mixed opinions about Svenskeren. I've seen Cloud9 fans say that this is a really good move and they're really happy with it. Other people are very upset. So I think I want to give everyone a chance to kind of say their piece and really debate this issue. So maybe give us like the abridged version.
I'll give the abridged version, and then Trey and I will go back and forth, and I'll fit in the rest. Or Trey, or Trey, you go first this time.
All right. So Svenskeren, summer split MVP in the finals. The not only monster on SK Gaming in Season 4, but the TSM monster that had actually haunted us for quite a bit of the last couple of splits. We lost our boy contracts. Really difficult. He chose to go to Golden Guardians. That's fine. Svenskeren is a monster. And when in the right situation, he can play to such a high level that I think contracts had not achieved. What's your opinion on this, Frozen?
You can look at in the past to Season 4, and you can point out that Svenskeren probably was a way better jungler than we've seen from contracts yet. But just looking in the past year, if you look at the stats from last split, contracts outperformed Svenskeren in pretty much all of them, and that for me is what the biggest thing. And like, I like Svenskeren. I don't think he's a bad player. I think that in a world where we didn't have contracts on our team, that this would be a really good pickup. It just, the thing that really irks me is that we are only allowed 2 import players. You can make an argument, the best jungler of last split. I don't think he was, but we had arguably the best jungler of last split. He's American, so he's not an import, and he's really young. And that for me is what the biggest problem is. Like, Jack fought for franchising for so long, and now that he finally got it, he didn't set up for the long term and quote unquote take those chances that he always talked about that franchising would give him. He sold arguably our most valuable player based on age, import status, and skill level, potentially in the entire league. I could take Pole Belter definitely, or Haunter, both as arguments there too. But I think in a different world that we didn't have contracts before this, that I would be more content with this move, because I do like Svenskeren. I do think he's good. I do think he'll work well with Jensen. I'm just worried about how he's going to also go with our other lanes who have perhaps not been the best, and one's totally unproven on the big stage. That's Licorice, especially going against really good top laners. So I just don't think that it's a good move making a lateral or maybe a slight upward move in skill to Svenskeren for an import slot, because I mean, it could just be down to the fact that I haven't had League of Legends ruined for me yet, like I have like watching the Lions or watching Michigan State football or basketball. But I don't know why contracts would have left us like he did. I mean, obviously something happened, but it's disappointing to see it happen. I honestly would have been content seeing us with Licorice contracts, Jensen, Sneaky, and Smoothie. But I don't know. I'll let someone else take a chance.
What I will say about the whole contract situation regarding him leaving is I think that was a choice he made on his own. I don't think that we weren't able. I don't think there was a situation where we weren't able to offer him enough money. I think he wanted a change in atmosphere. That's what it seems like. He also is going on to the team with High, who was one of the big
him
guys.
and High are like besties.
Yeah, like, if you remember Ember, the team that Contract was first on, High's brother ran that team. So, Contract has a lot of history with High and his family. So, this move is not too surprising, I think. I guarantee you C9 did try and fight for him, and when they realized that, you know, it looks like he wants to go to this team, we aren't going to stop him, because that would create a negative environment for us. We looked at our options. The fact that Sven got benched on TSM, when you look at the coaching structures for each team, I think our coaching structure is actually vastly superior to TSM last year. I just think that Parth is a great strategist, but I don't think he helps out individual lanes enough and doesn't allow for junglers to really express themselves properly. So I think under our system, Svenskeren will really thrive the same way Contracts did. And I'm actually thinking that Contracts actually gets worse because he won't have the same winning lanes. When you look at the Golden Guardians roster, it does not look like a top 5 team. So, that being said, I think Contracts, I loved him as a player. I still do love him as a player. I'm going to follow him. But I think that the overreaction of the fans to losing Contracts is a little out of place. He is a young talent, a prodigy. But there's more guys like this coming out. If you look at Scouting Grounds right now, there's a bunch of good people. There's some who haven't been in the scene for quite a bit, like Nintendude, who has actually been kind of MIA since Season 4, or even Season 3, who's trying to get back in, and these guys have the drive, and it's more so about how are they going to work with the team. I think Sven is a really great player, so we're just going to have to see how it goes.
Yeah, if I can add a little bit to this, I do think people are a bit overreacting, especially since the Cloud9 environment and the TSM environment are very different. I think the TSM environment seems very stressful, as well as very, very Bjergsen-centric, and it's all about helping him and doing what he wants, and their environment and playstyle was very passive and very safe and very patient, and I think that with someone like Svenskeren, who is an aggressive jungler and likes to make all these aggressive invasions and stuff, it really hurt his playstyle, and that's why we saw him fall off. Just like we saw before with Santorin, Santorin became a ward, and I think we'll see with Mike Young that Mike Young will also become a ward because the TSM playstyle is so specific and it does not fit some, certain jungle playstyles. But I think Svenskeren will do great on Cloud9 because our environment is much more supportive, I think. It's much more, laid back. I think also we really encourage aggression. Jensen is probably the most aggressive mid laner, and we really like playing through aggressive lanes. And I think we really encourage the more aggressive playstyle and support it because our team is always, with Contracts and his aggressive plays, we were always rotating towards him to make sure he was safe and could do those plays. So I think our playstyle and how we run things will help Svenskeren go back to where he was on SK Gaming, and we'll see this Phoenix rise from the ashes and then kill everybody. But I'm really hopeful, I'm really excited, and I'm rooting for him, even if some people aren't. And you should, because he's our jungler now, and you need to support him regardless of your feelings.
Can I just, add one more thing as a topic of discussion? It's too early to talk about this, I think, but another thing that kind of was underwhelming about this was franchising came about. There's been all these roster changes, And for a team that ended up in 4th place and dropped out of the first round of playoffs, I think some consistency would have been accepted by most people with 1 or 2 roster changes. But I don't think that these were the roster changes that people had hoped for. I mean, I know that we're not in the best position to judge what is happening, but it also kind of sucks that people like Licorice are only going to be getting 1 game a week, or sorry, 1 game a series next split, which isn't the optimal time to develop in the future either, and it's going to be really hit or miss on the stage each week because we're putting in a newer player and we're not playing with as much of a consistent roster, I guess. So that's 2 different points, I guess. So are there thoughts on the maybe lateral roster move standings wise, and to the fact that NALCS is just going to be 1 game a split, or a 1 game a series next split?
Yeah, I was actually gonna maybe bring that up a little bit. I think that how we built our roster the way we have built it now is specifically for franchising, since there isn't relegation and there's not going to be as many games played. You're going to have to, I think Cloud9 is more playing the long con instead of doing like it was before franchising, where there was relegation. You know, it was very short-term focused. It was very much, we need to stack as much of the positions as possible and try to win as much as possible. Where I think now it's, okay, build a roster, get them to improve, get them to grow, and do what you can to win and improve as a team slowly, much like how other franchise sports are kind of doing. So I can, from a business angle, this kind of makes sense, and going for this more long-term, goal-oriented roster move and how to use it. I think time will tell if it works or not, but it makes sense at least.
Okay, quick rebuttal, 10 seconds. Okay, so I think if you want to talk about long-term substance of this roster, it would have been Licorice in contracts starting. Svenskeren is getting up there in what we have seen a lot of professionals play in age-wise, and that this isn't a long-term move. It's more of a stopgap replacement. Okay, sorry, Trey, go.
Alright, so I'm going to bring up a point that really hasn't been talked upon much. You talked about summer playoffs, and I think a lot of people don't remember when we lost to Dig, the person who was probably getting the most flack was Contracts himself. I remember that series, people were saying Contracts was worse than Award. He really wasn't able to get anything going other than the 1 game he popped off on. People were calling for this. The reason that a lot of people don't remember this is because we did have that great showing at Worlds, and Contracts did really shine there. But there were points, definitely, where Contracts was not working. And it was clear that he wasn't able to develop those skills in our time frame. And so where the meta goes really may depend on how good he actually is, similar to how Inori was good for, like, a split. I still think Inori is a good player, but sadly, he's probably going to a challenger team. The best of 1 series, I think, while, yeah, it's a lot different for us, you gotta remember, they're still having the same amount of scrims, it's just 1 or 2 less games on stage. It is very important that you don't get cheesed and you have good preparations, more so than ever, but as much as I hate it as a viewer, I think as a player, it might be easier, and as a casual viewer, it might be easier to watch. That's just my opinion on it.
Yeah, I think as a viewer, the one game is actually kind of nice because it's mostly an hour investment at most. But that's why I did really like the best of two splits that EU did because of the time constraints. They just fit really well, and there's more than one game, which kind of helped. But I also get the contracts shit because I know there were times that we were upset with how contracts performed, but I think at the end of the day, it's easier to write it off because he's 18 and he's so young, and that he's such a young professional. And at the end of the day, a lot of his performances by himself were, when he was on his worst game, he was still average generally, in that he did when he was playing well, he was one of the top junglers in NA, and that's kind of why it stinks too. Like, he's been with the Cloud9 organization for a year or two. This is someone that we were super excited about when he jumped in with the Cloud9 Challenger team, and we were super excited to see him play and even replace Meteos on the main roster. And it kind of stinks in a sentimental way that he left too. And I know I even gave him shit, like his pathing left a lot to be desired for a split and a half, but like you could see that there was a lot of development from him, and I don't think that we're gonna be able to see that development from our junglers for quite a while now. Because I don't think Svenskeren's gonna see some major developments. I don't think that Wiggly is gonna be our next starting jungler. So I don't know. I guess it just kind of stinks because I thought that he was our next long-standing Cloud9 member too.
Yeah, I understand that for sure. What I will say is I think you may be underestimating what the org can do with Sin. He is getting up there in age, I agree. But I do think he can be a long-standing name on the team, because when you look at Sven's career right now, when he has had the option to have winning lanes and had the option to explore where he feels comfortable, he's shown that he is a top-class jungler. He is a world-class jungler. So, in that sense, we may see a reawakening in Sven. I think we will, but only time's going to tell. And that development that we had with Licorice, this is kind of what happened at the beginning of last year too, when we realized impact contracts. A lot of people were kind of iffy with the contracts move. Didn't see replacing Meteos as like the best option. But throughout Impact's time on Cloud9, we reawoke him to his former glory from his tip and NRG days. So, because of that, we may see just the same thing happen in a reversal of roles, where Sven becomes this veteran that can lead the team, and Licorice becomes this young guy who can pop off in the top lane and maybe help roam or create some mad TP plays or something like that. So I think there's just a lot of options, and I think it's kind of a mirror of what has happened before.
Well, I think only time can tell, and I would certainly like to hear what our listeners have to say on the issue. I know a lot of people have already been talking about this nonstop and blowing up the subreddit about it, which sometimes feels kind of pointless, because that's a whole nother thing. But, yeah, I guess my final statement on this before we kind of close out, just trust Cloud9. You know, they know what they're doing. They have a great infrastructure set up to get players up to their standard, which is very high. and just trust them, trust Sven, give him a chance. I know that Licorice and Sven are weird moves to some, but Cloud9 did it for a reason. Just give them a chance, give them a year, like we gave contracts a year, and I think it will all work out. Does anyone else have any quick closing statements before I send us off?
I don't have anything short, so no.
My closing statement probably is just going to be trust the process. All right. Jack knows what he's doing.
Also, Reaper and Lulix know what they're doing. They are... Lulix, a quick tangent aside, Lulix has been a great coach for us, and he has, I think, definitely... He helped unlock Contrax's potential, and once Lulix started coaching for us, I think I saw, like, a direct improvement in Contrax's, like, pathing and how he played and everything. So, I think Lulix, if he thinks Sven is good, we should trust him. If Reaper thinks Sven and Licorice are good, we should trust him. So, trust the process, trust everything, and just cheer for the team. Go Cloud9. We're all under one happy cloud. So we'll have to see. But yeah, thank you for listening to the 63rd episode of Bodied, the Cloud9 Fancast. Feel free to tweet us questions and feedback to @C9Bodied or email us at bodiedfancast@gmail.com. We really want to hear your thoughts on the Svenskeren Licorice move. Get those tweets coming. We may even read some next time on the show. We really want to see what people think. So, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Can
Bye-bye. Oh, wait.
Can I say one quick thing? One thing that
Sure.
okay, yeah, sorry. One thing that I do have to remind myself of constantly is that these guys are actually pretty young in life. Like, I'm 25, and making these big decisions at 18 and 19 would be absolutely terrifying. So, like, you can give people shit, like, as a joke and stuff, but, like, don't be an asshole to them, because a lot of these guys are 18 and 19 and going through, like, a lot of shit. So be kind to them on social media. Don't blow up their shit just because they do bad. AKA when Ray had that Shen game where he was down like 100.
Yeah, just don't be a dick. I think that should just be boiled down.
Yeah, just don't be a dick. So
especially to the team that you cheer for.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, especially to the team that you cheer for. So even if I am upset and disappointed, like, this cool down period between when it was announced and today definitely did help. So just don't be a dick. All right, bye.
Yep.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.